Hi, hey, hello. It is I, the real main event, the rogue soldier, but more importantly than that, I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and today you are going to be caught in the crossfire, but we will be caught in conversation. So without further ado, let's do this. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. I've had absolutely no caffeine today, and for some reason I'm still more buzzed than the previous episode, so this could potentially be interesting rather. Look at that, I'm off to a great start. Nothing really interesting this week, went to work, came home, went to work, came home, etc., etc., etc. We just watched episode 3 of Loki. No spoilers, but, the pace has slowed down. But there is still lots of fuckery afoot, as they like to say. Even though we're only are 3 episodes in, this is probably my favourite Marvel series on Disney Plus thus far. Of course, there is only 3 of them at the moment, but I'm sure that's probably going to change when She-Hulk drops, because that sounds absolutely lit just from the cast that they've announced alone. Mrs. Crossfire and I have actually been binge-watching Total Divas. I can feel you judging. Stop judging. We're up to season 5 currently, and the reason I mention this is it makes me laugh because, as a general rule, it obviously doesn't apply to everyone, but most guys, they'll try to get, their partners to watch Total Divas in order to get them into professional wrestling. I got Mrs. Crossfire into wrestling first, and now all of a sudden we're watching Total Divas. So it's a bit back to front, but that's just me in general, to be honest. And on that note, this is an unintentional little segue here. Eva Marie did just make her return to WWE a couple of weeks ago. And look, usually I try my best to play devil's advocate. And I understand that rebranding a character, it is part of the business, yada yada, etc. But what the fuck are they doing with Piper Niven? And they, meaning WWE. This woman is an absolute star, and to have her debut on Raw and everyone on commentary is just like, who's this young lady? Or, I've never seen this woman before in my life. I'm not sure if that was the exact quote, but it was along those lines. You get the point. So, as I said, what the fuck? Again, I understand repackaging, rebranding, etc., blah, 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 whatever, business. But to completely ignore everything she's done, and that seems like that's what they're doing, and to ignore everything she's done in NXT UK the last few years alone boggles my mind, and to a lesser extent, the absolute bangers that she had under the Viper name on the indies. Like the graphic this week when Piper was teaming with Eva Marie, it literally read, Eva Marie and her partner. Her partner. Now, obviously, there is still the possibility of hopefully being a payoff, where she can kind of snap and be like, no, this is who the hell I am, babyface, redemption, yada, yada, yada. It's similar to what Shah Samuels did. Of course, he actually did it as a heel in his first match on NXT UK. I can't even remember what name he went by, but he was like, I'm not blah, blah, blah. I'm the, East End Butcher, Shah Samuels, yeah, governor. They did kind of tease, tension on this week's Raw when Doudrop, as she is now known, she being Piper, she was mouthing the word Piper when she was asked who she was, but of course Eva Marie cut her off, butted in, and, gave her the aforementioned name of Doudrop. And Eva Marie was actually the one to be pinned by Naomi in the tag match they had where she blamed Doudrop. So I guess we're just going to wait and see, at least if it does happen that, she kind of snaps and she's like, no, I'm Piper fucking Niven, at least it gives the chance, the fans a chance, the mainstream fans to, recognize her face sort of thing. So fingers crossed that is, where they go and they, have a little bit of redemption, but let's be honest, as it's hit and miss with with me. As I said, it's not always Vince's fault. I said that in the first episode, but at the same time, the track record of trying to build new stars and then just all of a sudden it falls flat on their face. It's not looking too promising. But yeah, as I said, fingers crossed. Just a little rant there. Of course, that's what all this podcast is about. But for now, I'll get back on track with what I was originally trying to do, and I'll hit you with the song of the week, and then we'll go into the wrestling news of the week. So the song of the week, and I did post this on Facebook page yesterday. Of course, yesterday meaning the day I'm recording this. You're not going to hear this until Sunday. But the song is Never Ending Nightmare, which is the new song by Citizen Soldier, and it features Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens. This is another song. It's another song in the Citizen Soldier, Fight the Good Fight project. Of course, if you or someone you love, is struggling with mental health, then, I encourage you, please reach out to ask for help because, as I said before as well on here, it is okay to not be okay. So, yeah, Never Ending Nightmare by Citizen Soldier featuring Kellen Quinn. It's a tune. It slaps pretty hard. But, yeah. In the wrestling news, I don't know why I said it like that. As I said, I haven't had any caffeine today. I'm still way more jacked up than I was last time. I'm getting dry throat already. Excuse me. You talk too much. Nikki Cross. She on Raw this week. She seemingly has a new superhero gimmick, which was super, no pun intended, super left field. But apparently, both her and her partner, Big Damo, aka Killian Dane, did talk about this on Twitter and social media in general, that this was actually her vision that she was bringing to life. So that's a good thing. At least they didn't just go, let's just take this super talented woman and give her the most ridiculous gimmick we can think of. But yeah, and the Shane Helms actually, of course, famously known as the Hurricane, which was a superhero gimmick, a very successful superhero gimmick. He actually works backstage as an agent, producer, whatever you want to call it. So I'm hoping with him working backstage, I do have high hopes that Nikki, and especially with her bubbly personality as well, can make this work. She's, she wants to send a message to kids about, having their own spirit and stuff like that, which, completely understandable, very, very admirable. So yeah, hopefully this does take off. Hopefully the Hurricane, Shane Helms, is working close with her to make this, a successful gimmick and help her with all the right things. Like even just the entrance alone, like me and Teak were laughing, Mrs. Crossfire, the poses, it's like she definitely had help from him for sure. Like she just had to have. It came off like it was so cheesy and over the top, but at the same time, like she looked super, comfortable and natural doing it. And again, allegedly it was her idea to begin with. So, you'd hope so. But yeah, I feel like, he's definitely been helping her. But if he isn't, I really hope he does. Because, yeah, like a gimmick like that, especially with, this day and age, look at Marvel, DC, just absolutely blown up on the box office. So, a superhero gimmick these days could be even more relevant than it was back in the day of the Hurricane sort of thing. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to pop super hard if we do end up getting some sort of like on-screen training montage, with Nikki Cross and the Hurricane, or even Molly Holly as, the Mighty Molly character, of course, when she was Hurricane's sidekick. Help those two, either one of them or both of them training Super Nikki would pop the absolute shiznit out of me. Something I forgot to mention in last week's episode, and I don't know how I forgot about this, how I glossed over this. I think I was just so damn excited about, Grayson Waller, formerly Maddie Wahlberg, and Blake Christian, that I completely forgot about this, and my bad, because Samoa Joe made his return to WWE. Of course, now he's back on the NXT brand where he originally debuted for the company, and he is the special enforcer to General Manager William Regal. And of course, Joe was just released a couple of months ago, so that's why this is such big news, and I felt terrible for glossing over it. Obviously, Joe's never going to hear this, so he's not going to take offense. But yeah, I was just like, how the hell did I forget that? But yeah, the dirt sheets, they obviously WWE, they realized they made a big mistake, so they brought him back. But yeah, the dirt sheets are still reporting that, Joe still isn't cleared for competition. But there's certainly been quite a few teasers just with the first 2 weeks of him being back alone. Like, of course, the first week, the obvious one was Joe versus Cross. But the one that tickled me the most, and Mrs. Crossfire as well, was Samoa Joe and Pete Dunne. They had a really intense stare down in Mr. Eagle's office, and Mr. Eagle had to diffuse the situation. He kind of, stood between them. It was like, gentlemen, please. Like, it was the littlest thing, but it was just like, oh, just imagine that match. And then, of course, Samoa Joe did actually choke out Adam Cole while Cole was brawling with Kyle O'Reilly as well. And then they kind of semi-teased Adam Cole versus Samoa Joe again this week with the banter between Adam Cole and General Manager William Regal. Cole's like, something needs to be done, yada, yada, yada. And Regal was just like, look, you put your hands on him, this is what happened. So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see if Cole puts his hand on Joe again, or, if Joe is just going to be the special enforcer. I'm still holding out hope that he does come back, as a competitor, but in this role, I feel like even as a commentator, Joe was super underrated. Like, he did such a good job, but in this sort of role, I feel it kind of fits him. It reminds me back of when Stone Cold Steve Austin was, the assistant. No, it wasn't the assistant general manager. It was the co-general manager, where him and Eric Bischoff, they had like 50-50. And, he was just going around, and he was upholding the law. He was the sheriff in town. He was handing out stunners left and right. And, of course, they made it so, he had to be physically provoked, which is what they're doing with Joe here as well as the special enforcer. If any of that made sense. Thank you for listening and understanding. But yeah, I feel this is a perfect role for Samoa Joe. So glad he's back. And I can't believe I forgot to mention that last week. At GCW's show, which was aptly named Outlaw Mud Show, and it actually did take place inside of a barn. Big pop. I pop even more for the name, but the fact that it was actually in a barn, just, there's that thing again. Chef's kiss. But I believe, I haven't watched the show yet myself, but I believe it was the main event. But anyway, it was Nick Gage versus Mance Warner, and they were, brawling all over the place as you'd expect. And at some point, the brawl ended up spilling out into the concession stand. And the police were called. It's pretty damn crazy when you think about it in this day and age, like, professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever. But I think this is great because on one hand, it proves that kayfabe isn't fully dead. And I've been saying that all along. I truly believe that kayfabe is alive and well. Like, obviously, I'm breaking kayfabe within, the realm of this podcast, but within, the canon, of the actual show itself, I believe, the kayfabe does still exist. Like, yeah, there's those of us that, we know it's a work, but at the same time, like, you still buy into the characters, every once in a while. And this, as I said, with the police showing up, thinking that it's real, that proves that it's not dead. I mean, has it been skewed? Absolutely. But I believe that kayfabe is still alive and well nonetheless. I mean, I myself have been labeled at times by multiple people on multiple occasions as egotistical. And that's just from people believing things that I've said, with my attitude while in character. And to those people, I just say, don't work yourself into a shoot, brother. Anyway, and on the other hand, though, on the tiny chance that this is a work, it's fucking brilliant because it comes across as very convincing. But yeah, I think it was real. But yeah, how mad is that? Like, as I said, if it is a work, brilliant. But if not police being called because of a concession stand brawl taking place in a professional wrestling event in 2021. It's pretty fucking crazy times, y'all. Back on the 27th of May, Mustafa Ali and Ricochet had a 2 out of 3 falls match on main event. And for whatever reason, WWE Network, they're super behind on adding the main event episodes to the network. This only just got added this past week. But I watched this match, actually the same night I recorded the last episode, after the fact. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And, it's not the match of the week, but I would still say, if you have the WWE Network, I honestly would say go out, check this match out. Like, it was pretty good psychology-wise, in my opinion. And, of course, it's Mustafa Ali and Ricochet. So some of the spots were pretty sick. Go check it out. But with that, I will segue into the actual match of the week, which is the New Day versus the Usos. New Day versus the Usos for the SmackDown WWE insert pelvic thrusting here tag team more pelvic thrusting championship SmackDown Tag Team Championships at Hell in a Cell 2017. So I'll recap that properly. New Day versus the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships inside Hell in a Cell at Hell in a Cell 2017. This match, I feel, kind of goes under the radar a little bit, especially when it comes to the actual Hell in a Cell matches itself. But just as a match, it's like, as a match by itself, it's a fucking banger. There's that word again. But I feel like it kind of goes under the radar a little bit, and it might just be because, it is this day and age, and the WWE logo is attached to it, and a lot of the time these days, the internet or whatever, they automatically just shit on it because it has that logo, which is a shame, because this match, it's absolutely amazing. They're super creative with so much of their offense. Both teams play their part and their role while maintaining their characters so well. And at this point, fans were kind of starting to turn on both teams because they had too much exposure and they were constantly facing each other like every other week. But this match, and just put them back in the spotlight. And I think this was really the match that, the Usos, they came back, with like the rapper characters and welcome to the Uso Penitentiary, we're down since day one-ish, all that stuff. And then they were here. They came back as when they debuted that gimmick was when they turned heel. And this, by default, it added another layer to them. It just turned them face. Like, it was, the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian sort of situation after their ladder match. Like, they just had such a good match that you couldn't help but give them a standing ovation sort of thing. But yeah, like, just seriously, go check out this match. It's a prime example of the fact that tag team wrestling will always be a draw when it's done properly, which will be a perfect segue into next week's episode, which is the Top 5 Tag Teams episode. And of course, for those that have commented on the Facebook post, thank you. Keep them coming. I'm going to keep doing the poll a couple of days after this episode's released. So, yeah. But speaking of segues, we go from that Hell in a Cell match that I just mentioned between the New Day and the Usos. Sorry, you just can't help but doing it. I'm a little mark. That's okay. But this year's Hell in a Cell, WWE Hell in a Cell 2021, or WrestleMania Hell in a Cell, as me and my brother-in-law keep jokingly calling it, of course. They had WrestleMania Backlash that I covered, in the first episode. Well, I mentioned it in the first episode, rather. But the only match I was really looking forward to on this whole card, and, maybe that's on me, but it was Bianca Belair versus Bayley, of course, inside the actual Hell in a Cell itself, for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championships, which ended up being the opener. And it was a pretty good match, lots of creativity, much like I mentioned in the match of the week, but lots of creativity. They used Bianca's Bianca's braid, sorry, Bianca. I say Bianca because Aussie. They used Bianca's braid, and both Bianca herself used it for offense and defense. And then, of course, Bailey used it, against Bianca herself as offense. It was pretty cool. And as I said, it was really the only match I was looking forward to. So I kind of did check out after that. So, again, maybe it is on me. But I'm probably going to go back at some point and check out Seth Rollins versus Cesaro and Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, respectively. All four of these guys are capable of having great matches, and more often than not, they have a great match just, in general, let alone with their respective, dance partners, if you will, here. Seth versus Cesaro at WrestleMania was arguably match of the night on, the night that they were on, and their match at, WrestleMania Backlash. No, their match at Backlash was, pretty good too. And, Sammy and Kevin, they're fucking Sammy and Kevin. Like, they're almost always going to be joined at the hip in some form or fashion. And this sort of feud is a prime reason why I'm not fond of the gimmick pay-per-views. Like, my favorite gimmick match, as a side note, is the TLC match. And they've done the exact same thing with that. Because these two men here, right, in my opinion, they were made for the Hell in a Cell match. Like, they've gone to war all over the world in multiple different promotions. I mean, the one that does stand out is, in Ring of Honor, there was a ladder war between a man named Kevin Steen. Of course, look, break it down, that is Kevin Owens' real name, was his name on the Indies, and Sammy's Mexican cousin, wink wink, El Generico, of course, Kevin Steen versus El Generico in that awesome ladder war in Ring of Honor, among all the other crazy, no DQ wars that they've had. But, back to WWE, Sammy's original heel turn in WWE was him saving Kevin Owens in a Hell in a Cell match against Shane McMahon. So the stories there alone, let alone the kind of match that they'd be capable of having. And as I said, they've feuded all over the world. They've had so many different types of gimmick matches. Why wouldn't you put these two of all the people on the card, inside the Hell in a Cell match? But of course, I guess they already filled their quota, if you will. They already had 3, if you count Mysterio versus Reigns on SmackDown. Actually, scratch that. They had 4 because they had one the following night on Raw between Lashley and Xavier Woods the night after the pay-per-view. Now, that brings me to the main event of the pay-per-view, speaking of Lashley. As I said, I haven't watched the whole thing, but the main event was Drew McIntyre. I've watched the highlights. 2 big, beefy men smacking the crap out of each other, throwing massive hits at each other. There was a spot, though, where Drew went through the table and the camera cut away from the actual break, leading you to believe that maybe there was a crash pad. But then they cut back to the camera with Drew selling. Sorry, I'm going to take another drink here. They cut back to the camera to focus on Drew selling. And they accidentally caught a hand sticking out of the ring trying to grab, the crash mat. So indeed, yes, there was revealed there was a crash mat, but it was stuck under the table. And everyone's getting mad about this. And I get it and I don't get it at the same time. Like, I understand safety first and yada yada. But at the same time, I don't feel like they needed to go to that length for such a simple bump. But at the same time, I'm like, look, they did what they did. It's live TV. It wasn't meant to be caught on TV. But again, live TV, shit happens. And at the end of the day, me being optimistic, for the internet at least, it's going to create some good memes and give us a good laugh. The finish was what I really wanted to talk about, though. Like, so many people are getting up in arms because a Hell in a Cell match, it's meant to be brutal. War. Yeah, well, when you're having it, a quota once a year, it's not really that much of a war. They're just locked in a cage for the sake of being locked in a cage. But that's, neither here nor there. That's another rant for another day. As I said, too many gimmick pay-per-views. But I honestly think having the roll-up was brilliant. One, it's the first time it's ever happened in a Hell in a Cell match. How many more first evers are left in professional wrestling at this point, sports entertainment? And the whole stipulation was that if Drew loses, he can't challenge for the championship as long as Bobby Lashley is the WWE champion. Now, another sidebar, but I do think this opens up the loophole of Drew McIntyre winning Money in the Bank next month, because who doesn't love a good loophole? Now, he did lose his qualifying match to Matt Riddle, who just goes by Riddle now. But he is in a second chance triple threat match next week with AJ Styles and Randy Orton. Now, I'd like AJ Styles to win, but I do feel like Drew is going to win this and go on to win the Money in the Bank contract. Although, in all honesty, being the mark that I am, I'm still holding out hope that my boy John Morrison does go all the way, win Money in the Bank, and then actually, they finally break up, him and The Miz, and they feud over either the Money in the Bank contract or Morrison cashes in and they feud over the title. But that's probably being way, way, way too naive. But I am actually keen for Money in the Bank, though. It's one of the rare gimmick pay-per-views that does actually work. Now, I did love that they had the Money in the Bank match, at WrestleMania when it first came in, but now that they've got the men's and the women's, it's like, that's cool. Like, I didn't like when they had a Raw and a SmackDown one, but, excuse me, there I go again. I didn't like when they had one for each brand, but having just one for both brands, for the men and the women, having a pay-per-view for it, at least, makes sense. And this year's Money in the Bank is going to be the first one where they have fans back full-time. Of course, we saw how much the fans make a difference at WrestleMania this year. But yeah, they're going to be back with fans full-time, in the next couple of weeks, COVID permitting, and this will be the first pay-per-view back with fans. So I'm expecting them to pull out all the stops. But yeah, Drew lost. Sorry about that. Drew lost to a roll-up at Hell in a Cell, and as I said, I love it because although, Lashley could have had this big dominating victory after the 2 war they had, and I guess that still would have worked the same, but I like that after everything Drew's done as a babyface to get the title back, the evil heel right in the end just kind of swats him away like a little gnat, like a fly, just by pulling a fast one. And obviously, MVP's distraction made it happen, which helped Lashley barely squeak away with the victory. But he's a heel. I love it. Just, hey, I'm not going to even hit you with my finisher. I'm just going to do this little roll-up, and hey, guess what? Ding, ding, ding. You can't challenge for my title again. Ha! So it gets, Lashley and MVP, obviously MVP, Lashley's manager, for those unaware, a load of heat. And it also still gives me hope that, the Lesnar match with Lashley will still happen. I see, Lesnar coming back as a face to wrestle a heel Lashley at SummerSlam. MVP did actually just send out a tweet like a couple of days ago saying that Brock Lesnar fears Bobby Lashley. So, never know. It could just be him, trying to, build the character up. Maybe he's shooting. Who knows? But, there is that naive part of me that wants to, think that hopefully, it is actually a work and it does lead to Brock coming back. And we could even see, a Drew heel turn, Cash, if he does win it, cashes in Money in the Bank on a face Brock Lesnar after Brock Lesnar beats the heel Lashley at SummerSlam, setting up a face Lesnar versus a heel McIntyre, but this time in front of actually fans. Maybe even a triple threat between McIntyre, Lesnar, and Lashley down the line. Possibly Survivor Series if they drop the brand versus brand thing, which I wouldn't mind if they did this year, to be honest. Because, last year's just felt kind of meh. If they do have brand versus brand again at this year's Survivor Series, I hope they add NXT back into it, just because it makes it a bit more fresh, it makes more, new matches sort of thing. Especially if you're doing that sort of, gimmick for it. But you can even keep Drew McIntyre as a face. Have it strictly so, they either say, hey, no, you can't cash in on Lashley, you've got to hold up your end of the bargain. Or, because it is a loophole, they leave it as is, he cashes in between Roman Reigns versus Lashley in the interbrand match at Survivor Series, or Roman versus Brock if Brock does come back. But then Swerve Bro cashes in on Roman, Drew moves to SmackDown, which I wouldn't mind, because if he goes over there as a babyface, there's a whole fresh land of opponents over there waiting for him. That was my attempted quick thoughts on Hell in a Cell in a nutshell, and my fantasy booking of the next couple of months of the WWE Championship picture. But yeah, that's, as I said, I'm trying not to make too much of a habit of, these shorter episodes, but nothing's really happened this week. I haven't really watched much wrestling. I'm just kind of chilling, getting ready for the Masked Wrestlers League, this weekend, which obviously, as I said, will have already happened by the time you hear this. But just to recap, the song of the week was Never Ending Nightmare by Citizen Soldier, featuring Kellen Quinn. And the match of the week was New Day versus the Usos, Hell in a Cell, 2017. And as I said, next week's episode, top 5 tag teams. And I understand this is kind of like a filler episode as well. I do apologize because I've been focusing on, putting this list together, which is why I wanted to have a break between episodes to do it. But yeah, if you haven't already, head over to the Court in Conversation Facebook page to cast your votes, I guess. I thank everyone for the support, and to those that have commented on the original posts or private messaged me, people on Instagram as well. But of course, commenting on the original Facebook post does make it slightly easier just to keep track of. But yeah, hit me up regardless. Let me know who you think are the best 5 tag teams of all time, or even just give me the single greatest team in your opinion. Obviously, if you're listening to this episode after I've recorded the next episode, then just ignore this little tirade. But yeah, I'm thinking probably about Monday or Tuesday, so either a day or two after this episode originally goes up is when I'll close the votes, sort of thing. So yeah, head over to Facebook, Court in Conversation with John L. Crossfire. All the links are in the bio. Of course, we've got, my actual Crossfire page and my Instagram and my Twitter, Pro Wrestling Tees as well, if you want to support a boy, support your homie. I don't know. Give me money, please, so I can buy tacos. But in 2 weeks, ICW Goulburn, we will be raising money for the Leukemia Foundation. All tickets are just $10. And again, at the Goulburn Workers Club, again, as I said, all links will be in the bio. As I said, I apologize that this one is slightly short. It's not going to be the best episode I ever have, but that's okay. We live and we learn. I am the essential John L. Crossfire. Thank you for getting caught in conversation. Ciao.